Good afternoon. I am Sabrina Fusari, and this is the first lecture of the course of English, Language and Linguistics 1 in e-learning. Now, the first issue that we're going to deal with is the role of functional grammar, what it means, and how it differs from other grammatical approaches. Now, before we start, let me give you some practical information on how to use these files. You'll find that most PowerPoints will be pretty short. Now, the reason for this is twofold. It's both a matter of technology, so that the files are shorter and therefore more manageable for you, easier to download, easier to watch. But there's also a didactic reason, and the didactic reason is that I want these PowerPoints to be as granular as possible. By granular is meant in the methodology of e-learning, a chunk of course that teaches you only one thing, okay? So you watch a short PowerPoint, but this doesn't mean that you haven't learned anything. Actually, it means that that's a chunk that you have to make sure you have learned before you go on. Okay, so the first chunk, let's say, the first part is the meaning of functional grammar. So to answer this question, what is functional grammar, we need to answer a set of sub-questions. First of all, why study grammar? Secondly, why, of all the approaches that we have available to grammar, should we choose functional grammar? What is new about this approach and why it is attractive? Why it's more exciting than other, perhaps more traditional approaches to grammar? Well, we'll be answering all these questions in the first lecture. I mean, not in this first chunk. This first chunk will only start dealing with these important issues, but once you complete the first lecture, all of it, you will know how to answer these four sub-questions that form the core of the key question, what is functional grammar? So let's get started. You will find that I use both the expression functional grammar and the expression systemic functional linguistics almost interchangeably. Does this mean that functional grammar, or FG, is the same as systemic functional linguistics, or SFL? Well, not really, because functional grammar is one very important application of systemic functional linguistics. So you should see systemic functional linguistics as the larger concept within which you can talk about functional grammar. Systemic functional linguistics is the broader study of all the aspects of language. Functional grammar focuses specifically on lexicogrammar. You see here that the word lexicogrammar conflates two important concepts: the lexis, that's the words, the vocabulary, and the grammar. You see, it's only one word. Just one word, lexicogrammar, and this is because functional grammar sees lexis and grammar as impossible to separate. They're one thing. We'll see during this course that the two are really impossible to separate. They're one. So vocabulary and grammar should be seen as one. Okay, so let's try to get to the core of our lesson. What does systemic functional mean? Now, it means that our grammar focuses on paradigmatic relations. So you should know the difference between paradigms and syntagms from your study of general linguistics, but we'll brush up these concepts so that we make sure you understand them very well. Now, the adjective systemic in systemic functional linguistics means that our approach sees language as a set of systems. So as a set of options, of choices for making meaning. So, of course, structure has a role. It has, it's important, but it's not really the core of our grammar. The core, the center, the heart of our grammar is the choice, the systems. Secondly, the other adjective that we use to describe our grammar is functional, and this means that we look at meaning. Here you see the expression discourse semantics. Now, both words are important. Semantics means the study of meaning. Discourse means language in use. Now, let's immediately specify this, because some students tend to think that discourse only means spoken language. This is not correct in linguistics. Discourse encompasses both spoken and written language, as long as it's real language. So the study of discourse is the study of language in use. So discourse semantics means the study of the meaning of language in use. All right, and this is the key notion of function in SFL, in functional grammar too. If we say we are interpreting the grammar functionally, it means that we are foregrounding, that's we're focusing on, we're concentrating on its role as a resource for construing, for making meaning. Okay. So now, let's brush up, as promised, the notion of paradigmatic versus syntagmatic relations. Now, you should know that the two must be explored on a diagram with paradigms on the vertical axis and syntagms on the horizontal axis. Now, what does this mean? Okay, let's try to fill in this diagram with examples. Okay, if we work on the vertical axis, this is an example of the kind of choice that we may have for a determiner. We could choose a distal one like that, a proximal one like this, an indefinite one like a, or a definite one like that. Then we have a choice among different nouns. Okay, now I'm talking about nouns, but later on we will refine our terminology and see that there are other ways in which we can look at this kind of word. But for the time being, I want to try and use some terminology that you're already familiar with from your knowledge of traditional grammar that you acquired in high school. So let's say that these are nouns. Okay, you have a choice. Okay, I just gave you 4 options, but you could, you name it. You could use any noun here. You have a very, very large choice. And then verbs, okay? Again, I'm using traditional word class terminology that you know. Okay, so now we've worked vertically. So we've made choices from the vocabulary that we know. But we could also look at this diagram horizontally and see how these combine. Okay? And these combine well based on the inventory of structure that English offers. Okay? They work well, they can stay together horizontally, whereas vertically, we have chosen these according to what we meant. Okay, so what we can say about paradigmatic and syntagmatic relations is that paradigmatic relations are about choice. The axis of paradigms is the axis of choice. Instead, Syntagmatic relations are about combination. They're about the way in which we can make our choices hang together following the inventory of structure that the language we're speaking offers. Okay, so we have axis of choice, axis of combination. Right, so let's focus on this very important concept in systemic functional linguistics, choice. Now, when we say that functional linguistics and functional grammar offer you a grammar of choice, this doesn't mean that you can say whatever you want, that you can combine your choices in any way that you want. Structure also has a role, and there are some basic formal rules that must be followed. Even if our grammar is not formal, it is functional, we do recognize that some formal rules must be mastered by competent speakers. So the positive side of this is that once you master this inventory of choice of structures, that is, once you know how to combine the choices that you make, you have almost endless resources to make meaning functionally. So, to sum up, we concentrate on choice. Choice is our priority, but we do recognize that there is a role, that there is an important role that combination also plays in language. Now, choices may be free or they may be bound. Now, let's see an example immediately so that we clarify the dialectics between free and bound choices. Now, let's label the vertical axis as paradigmatic, and let's label the horizontal one as syntagmatic. Now, let's see this statement. I will deliver you to the airport. Now, if you look at this from the point of view of paradigms, all the choices that we made are English, okay? And there is nothing wrong from the point of view of the choices. We've chosen words that are all an integral part of the English vocabulary. But if we look at this from the point of view of combination, there's something that doesn't sound quite right. Can you identify it? This. Now, this is a matter of collocation. It's a problem that's related to the context. You don't deliver a person to the airport. What do you do when you want to accompany someone to a particular place? You either drive them, or more generally, you take them there. So here, our choice is actually limited by the possibility that the inventory of structures of English allows us. Okay? And it's called collocation. Collocation is the property of words to be able to stay together. And it's a syntagmatic problem. That tends to limit our free paradigmatic choice. Okay? So it's not really appropriate in standard English to say, I will deliver you to the airport. It is more appropriate to say, I will drive you or I will take you. Now, you will have noticed that I used the word appropriate. I didn't use the word right. I didn't use the word correct. This is because, as we shall see later on, functional grammar is not a prescriptive grammar. It doesn't tell you what's right, what's wrong. It doesn't correct your mistakes. It aims to show what is appropriate to say in a given context. Remember this word context, it's crucial, and we will dedicate lots of time and lots of attention to it. Now let's see another example. I will bring you to the station. Is this correct? Sorry, appropriate. Okay, what's the difference between correct and appropriate? Correct is a concept that's prescriptive. It's like traditional grammar when it gives you a list of words that can stay together. Instead, what we aim to do is try to ask in which context this could be possible. Of course, it wouldn't be possible in standard English, but it could be possible for someone using, for example, English as a lingua franca. English in an international context in which English is used as a common language to try and understand each other. In this situation, yes, you can hear I will bring you to the station, and it's quite easily comprehensible, but it wouldn't be used in standard contexts. We'll see this in depth as we go along, but for the time being, remember that functional grammar is non-prescriptive and it assigns a crucial role to context. Now let's see another example. I will drop you off to the university. Now let's try to understand this as usual from the paradigmatic point of view. It doesn't create any problems, but it does create one from the syntagmatic point of view. Now, the problem here is that the phrasal verb drop someone off, doesn't really like to be in the company of the preposition to. It wants to be in the company of the preposition at. Okay? It means to drop someone off, means to take this person to a place and then leave them there. Now here we have at, but we have a different SU. I will drop off you. Now this is also a syntagmatic problem that limits our freedom to choose paradigms as we like, because you know, to drop someone off means, as I told you before, to take a person to a place and leave them there. But to drop off someone means a different thing. It means that, it means that you're on someone's shoulders and this person lets you fall. So it's entirely different. Here, it's much more appropriate to move the preposition after the pronoun. Okay, so to sum up, the first examples I showed you are examples of collocation because they identify the property of lexical words to stay together. So, for example, the reason why I will bring you to the station is not appropriate in standard English is that you don't bring a person somewhere. You take them there. It's a matter of words staying together. Here, it's a matter of collocation. Collocation meaning the property of grammatical words to stay together. So collocation is lexical, collocation is grammatical. And these are two phenomena that tend to limit the freedom of speakers to choose whichever words they want. Okay? Now, another question. Why should we study grammar at all? Now, our belief, the reason why we dedicate so much time and effort to functional grammar is that we believe that grammar facilitates language learning. And why did we choose functional grammar? Because unlike traditional approaches to grammar, functional grammar really shows you language as purposeful. It shows you the things that you can achieve with language, and it concentrates very much on the meaning. So it doesn't ask you to learn lots and lots of rules and lists of words by heart. It asks you to think of what you mean. And it also promotes your capacity to learn how to say, to mean, how to express meaning in different ways depending on the context. So that's the reason why we chose functional grammar over other approaches that are common currency, for example, in high schools. Now, you see, this slide, for the first time, mentions that important concept that I told you about, context. So, Halliday, which is the founder of our grammatical approach, maintains that the relationship between wordings people use and their meanings is not arbitrary. It is connected with a context, and the context can be articulated, is articulated actually, into two major forms: the context of culture and the context of situation, and the two coexist. Remember that then I'll explain, of course, during the course of this course how the two should be analyzed and dealt with. Now, let's see this example. Time flies like an arrow. We have the meaning, we have the wording, and depending on whether we're speaking or writing, we have the letters if we're writing and the sounds if we're speaking. So the meaning is, of course, time passes quickly, okay? But the wording is not time passes quickly. It's time flies like an arrow. So it's a metaphorical, or actually this figure of speech would be a simile. But anyway, it's a figure of speech that allows us to explain, to express a certain meaning, okay? So in a different context, you might want to say time passes by and passes quickly, and you would have the same meaning with a different wording, okay? You understand there's a relationship between these three main points that's really very close. Now, as I said, the founder of systemic functional linguistics, and of course its application, functional grammar, is Michael Halliday. What does he say about grammar? He says that language is a semiotic system. Meaning is created in language. Now, I hope you're all familiar with the word semiotic. Semiotic means the study of signs. So Halliday sees language as a social semiotic, as a system of signs that expresses the society. So there's an inextricable relationship between society and language, just as there is an inextricable relation between context and language. Okay, now in the next step of this lecture, we shall see 4 points that we need to focus on in order to understand language as a social semiotic. The notion of grammar as being functional, the notion of semantics, that is the importance of meaning in this approach, the notion of context, and of course the meaning of semiotic itself. What does it mean for language to be a system of signs? Now, so this is the first chunk of the first lecture, and please study it and then go on to the second chunk.